I should think, and we should put our hands together for the Federation of Gujarat Industries and the 15th FGI Excellence Awards. Thank you. We feel honored and proud that today we have amongst us an author of many books, but to name a few, the Penguin Book of Hindu Names, Penguin Book of Muslim Names, and etymological directories, animal activism and laws, and very many other books that Madam has written. I invite our Honorable Chief Guest of 15th FGI Awards, Srimati Maneka Sanjay Gandhi, Union Minister for Women and Child Development, to address us. Thank you.
Mr. Mankat, Mr. Shah, Mr. Doshi, Ms. Nair, Yogesh Bhai, my colleague and very capable Member of Parliament, Ranjanji, Ms. Dangar, the Mayor, our Vidhayaks who are sitting on the munch, Mr. Sukhadia, Mrs. Vakil, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to the centenary of the Gujarat Federation of Industries. Actually, I'm the wrong person to call because I really have very little information about industries, but I am going to talk to you about the soft underbelly. No industry can run unless society is stable, optimistic, gentle, and fair. And these are the qualities for which I have been striving my whole life. Now, of course, at the moment, industry is in a bit of a panic because, as the saying now goes, that behind every successful businessman is a public sector bank. and unfortunately, a large number of NPAs have come from Gujarat. But I'm sure that on the upside, you have taught most of India how to do business. This is an amazing state with an amazing number of entrepreneurs and people who are not afraid to take chances, to take risks, and to recognize that you can do well if you keep up with the times. I'm going to suggest a few new industries at the end of this, if I can remember, because by now I'm so tired of standing forever. I want to actually start, my speech is extempore, but I want to start by congratulating the Federation for having given an award to the Maldharis for protecting camels. You have no idea the treasure that you're sitting on. There is a completely unique kind of camel that swims. And there are only 3,000 left because for some reason the state government has forbidden them from swimming because they say that they destroy the mangroves. I don't know how 3,000 camels can destroy mangroves, but they swim to the baits every year and then they come back. It's an absolute miracle of nature. But more importantly, the preservation of the camel is an important business opportunity because camel milk is anti-diabetic. And for a state that indulges in so many sweets, I think you should protect yourself by some entrepreneur recognizing that camel milk should be marketed. It has milk, the camel milk has insulin in it. And at the moment, it is selling in the black market because it hasn't been marketed properly. So it is selling in the black for 500 rupees a liter. And a lot of people are importing it under different names from Dubai. So maybe if somebody senses a business opportunity or helps the Rabadis, who are many of the younger Rabadis are just leaving this, the Maldharis and Rabadis are leaving this profession because they see no money in it. And it would be good if you sat with them and showed them how to market camel milk. Anyway, to come back to what we have done, one of the first things I did when I became minister was to feel hopeless because I didn't have an office, we didn't have an agenda. This ministry had existed in name for 15 years. without a single thing being done. So the first thing we did was got an office and then sat down with everybody and got an agenda. And our agenda was to make this ministry so strong, so powerful, that maybe at some point a man would like to be the Minister for Women and Children. And so we started with small things. The first small thing we did was a simple thing. It's called, and it fitted into the Prime Minister's ease of business. And that was, you probably don't know, but when somebody dies, the other half, the wife or the husband, did not get their names put onto the death certificate. So for poor women, they had to run around and bribe SDMs and tehsildars and lekpals just to get their insurances, their pensions. So I made it, that was the first thing we did in the first week, just made it compulsory for all death certificates to carry the name of the survivor. Now this seems a small thing, but it changes lives for ease of business. Like that, we went on to the next thing we did was passports. A lot of women get very fed up when they have to give their father's name, husband's name, their credentials, and whether in schools, whether they're single. So we just said that you can write whatever you want. You write your own name, your mother's name, or nobody's name, and that went through MEA, and I'm happy to say that was one of the things that was passed again. The third thing we did was a bigger thing, and again, it was at random. We were just looking to see kahan chhed hai is diwar mein, aur kitne jaldi can we pick the low-hanging fruit and plug it. So the third one was working with the finance ministry. We made it mandatory for a woman to be on every board of directors. Now, being Indian, of course, the first choice is wife, daughter, child, and to the great Indian extended family of second and third cousins. But sooner or later, there will be a time when the company realizes the value of having a professional woman on the board of directors who can contribute towards the health of the company. And this is working very well. The fourth thing, then we went on to many things. So let me give you some of the things that we've done. The first thing that the Prime Minister said was that he wanted to do Beti Bachao. Now, it's easy to say it. Okay, I want women to increase. But Gujarat, even then, India is divided this way. We have the east and the west. In the west, everybody is socially upwardly mobile. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, Haryana. And they just want 2 children, and they want what they want. The first should be a boy, the second should be a girl. Or 2 boys. But if it's 2 girls, God help the second girl. Or God help the mother of the second girl. So we had to correct these. There were 2 or 3 things that were going wrong. One was the belief that girls are, paraya dhan. So we spend all the money educating them, creating them, and then they go off and become somebody else's property and work for them. The second one was that dahej bahut dena padta hai, the family suffers, and so there's no need for a girl. And the third was a far more rational thought, which was that ladkiyan ki raksha kaun kar sakta hai? And how do we keep them from molestation, from physical danger? How do we let them go to school and come back safe? And this resulted in the birth rate of girls falling to an abysmal, in nature. If we leave nature be by herself, there will be 1,100 girls for 1,000 boys, because the breeder is more important to nature, since the purpose of everything in life is to reproduce itself. But India had fallen to 800, and in Gujarat, in certain places, 750. And that means lakhs and lakhs of girls getting killed either in the womb or when they were born. So we had to correct this. So we chose 100 districts, and we started by doing simple things, making it compulsory for everybody to do hospital delivery, otherwise they would not be recognized. So that became 100% from something like 40%, literally. Then we started rewarding people for doing unusual things. Instead of writing Gupta and Sons, if you wrote Gupta and Daughters, then you got something from us. We celebrated every birth. We brought NGOs in. We made the DM the nodal authority. We also placed informers in every village to tell us if there were children getting married at the age of 12 and 14. We took over the radio waves and made this into a celebration. We started awarding people for having the girl and being proud of her. We had something called Selfie with Daughter. And these were the cosmetic things. In every village, we had a board. And that board was meant to put it in your face how many girls there were in your village and how many boys. Now, even with doing all this, we had a whole lot of other things. We also kept a very strict check on the PCP and DT operators, the ultrasounds, and a large number of them were hauled up at some point for a diagnosis that was illegal. So the result was, I still expected that since this was such a Purana, rivaz of not letting daughters get born, that it would be at the maximum, an 830 girls would lead to, say, 850. I'm happy to tell you that I was proven completely wrong. Within a year, we moved from 830 to 950. It has been incredible. What has happened in this program has been incredible. And the reason why it's been incredible is not because Maneka Gandhi or the government of India or the Prime Minister did it, but because society changed. You changed your attitudes. You became proud of us. You saw what we had been seeing all along, that women are the backbone of this nation. And you strengthened your backbone. And I was sitting with the HRD minister one day, and I said, what more can I do? I said, let's give scholarships to all girls who get above 75%. And he did this, and he said, Menka ji, aap mujhe kangal kar doge. He said, every girl gets above 75%. It's these boys that you have to give scholarships to, ki sab ke sab 40% mein baithe ho hain. So this was one of our major programs, and it has been the biggest success of this government because it has simply turned around. We had one or two failures, there's no doubt. One was Kashmir, because Kashmir, and the reason we analyzed was because Kashmir sees itself at war. And when you have a state of war in your mind, then you don't want to have girls because you think that they become hostages. The second one was Bihar, and I'm not surprised. But Bihar, because they kept changing the DM every 2 months, so there was no mothering the project. And two, because they forgot to release any money, and they forgot to tell him anything else. But now Bihar is back on track, and hopefully by the end of this year, we keep a week-to-week, month-to-month registration of children. So I know whether it's going up, down, what measures are needed. It's an on-time, in-time progress report that I get. So that's one. The second is we did how do we make women feel safer in a society so that a woman can become an entrepreneur, a woman can go to work, a woman can go to college. We decided that we would get more women into the police. So I changed the policy after asking everybody, of course, and we made it that every police force will have 30% women. And now the recruitments are going on. All the states are now recruiting more and more and more women so that we reach 30%. And what effect this will have is that women who are scared to complain and go into an all-male thana will now be more, confident about going into reporting in the police. Before, what was happening was we were paying a lot of money, or my predecessors were paying a lot of money to sensitize the police. It is beyond me to sensitize a male policeman, especially in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and places like that. So it's better to put just women there. When you have 5 people in a thana, and 2 of them are women, the other 3 get sensitized very fast. So we just changed the percentages. And that, you will see in the coming years, will have a huge effect. The third thing we did was start a centers, which we've now got 171 of, called the Sakhi centers. This came as a response to the Nirbhaya outrage that the whole of India felt. So now this is an unusual thing started by me in my ministry, and that is we have it's a one-stop center. If any woman has been stalked, molested, domestic violence, husband beating, some problem she has in which she needs help, up till now, she did not go, even if she went to the police, and she was lucky enough to escape the police and get her FIR registered. Uske baad kya kare? Adalat chale jaye, adalat mein 50 saal lage, she needs a lawyer. So most women just hide their wounds and carry on. Now in this Sakhi center, any woman who phones, and we now have a universal helpline called 181, which did not exist before me, and you phone 181, you go in and we will send a vehicle for you and the children if you want. You come to the center. We have a nurse, we have a counselor, we have a lawyer, we have a doctor, and we have a policeman. And they are at your service. Your case will be, firstly, you will be treated by the doctor, counseled, helped. What is it that we can do for you? Then the police register your case, the lawyer will fight it for you, and we get real-time responses on where your case stands. Now this, the first Nirbhaya Center, or Sakhi Center that we set up, was in Raipur. And in the beginning, I'm sorry to say, 200 women came per day. So you can imagine the kind of wounds that they were suffering from in society. Then slowly, ghat kya. Still, we follow each case. And it's not that they have not come because they're disappointed or anything. It's because now men are scared to do what they were going to do to them easily and escape the law. I was in Sikkim recently, and in Sikkim, they said that, sooner or later, we're not going to need the center at all, because it's gone to every village. And we started off with hundreds, now it's down to 59 a month. And they were so happy. When I go to hospitals, normally in normal things, I say phalu phulo. But in hospitals, I always say khali raho. So it's like that, I feel, with the Sakhi centers, ki ek din khali raho. So that's the infrastructure that we are busy putting up. We also have panic buttons coming up on mobile phones. Now these are the only ones in the world. It took me 2 years to convince the hardware manufacturers, because they said, we'll have to do it specially for India. But having done that, we then had to start trials. And after we did when we were starting the trials, the minister changed his mind and said, no panic buttons. So then we waited for a year. Now he said, okay, you can go ahead. So our trials are going on in Uttar Pradesh. And once those trials are finished, every single cell phone, smartphone, has a button in it, which can be pressed when you need the police and when there's an emergency situation. Please, when it comes out, do not misuse it by letting the children play with it or doing it at random, because then will lose its effectiveness. We also have 2 or 3 things. I'm just going to rush through them now because I know you're also tired. One is, since all industries now have to have a sexual harassment committee, you know that, since you are all the federation. Any company that does not have a sexual harassment committee can be shut down. And you need to take those sexual harassment committees seriously, because I have a backup to that. And that is, we have a she box. When the Me Too movement started, India was the only country to respond to the Me Too movement. You know what that is. And we responded by opening a she box in my ministry, which any woman across India can access if she is not being treated by her company properly. And that she box, I'm sorry to say, has got several hundred complaints, and each complaint is dealt by us phoning the company making sure the things are put right. We did a small study, and this is the first time I'm talking about it. We did a small study by an NGO on industry, and we found to our horror that women who join companies suffer some form of harassment. 87% of women suffer some form of harassment in their first year of employment or industry. That is an unnecessary and an unforgivable statistic. And hopefully, over the years, this will come down, since you now have areas where you can complain. We have instituted awards for women, and we give them to the most unusual women, people who have seeds, who are seed gatherers. I know a woman in Pondicherry who's collected 1,000-year-old seeds, and there's a bindi that's lal and this big. There's so many things, and she distributes them free to farmers, so she's got an award. We've got women who have started industries, employed only disabled people, and done extremely well. They got an award. We've got women who saved, and I'm so happy to see that one of our industries is working on saving the Saras crane, which happens to be my favorite bird. So, you know, when you see the Saras, it's like seeing the lotus, or listening to the koel, or the monsoon. It's so genetically in our DNA that we're happy when all this comes together. So if you're saving it, wonderful. There are many, many things that we have done. We also have something called the Mahila E-Heart, which I would like the Federation to look at. The purpose was that, you know, many of your federations, whether it's ASOCHAM or FICCI or any of the others, are basically male-dominated. And what they do is they create a women's wing to keep their wives happy. And those women spend most of their time socializing or having tea or talking to each other or creating contacts with their husbands. But by themselves, they're not terribly important. So we said, why not do something called a Women's Entrepreneurship Council? And I'm working on that. It will happen. What it is any entrepreneur anywhere, from a village woman who does mehendi, gets a vote. And that vote then selects state and then national. And that big grouping of the Women's Entrepreneurship Council then influences government to make fairer policies, to make, to get a better deal for women in business. So that was happening, and the first step towards that is we have a site called Mahila E-Heart. And any woman who makes anything can get on free onto that site, and we sell her products for her. So have a look at it and see how you would like to be on that. We also have a Women's Organic Festival, which comes every year, where hundreds of women come and sell crores worth of organic food in Delhi. And it's been such a success that we have one portion of it now in Ahmedabad, where we work with one of my heroes, Professor Anil Gupta, in his organic festival. And now we have also had a third one in Bombay, where they completely sold out, and that we partnered with Juhi Chawla. So the idea is to push women towards organics, since women become the biggest sufferers when they use chemicals indiscriminately and get sick. So that would be another sunrise area for anybody who would like to start working on. Now, before I could say hundreds of things about what the ministry has done, because we've done everything from those rape locks on taxis now are not allowed. Because I used to get frightened. You get into a taxi, you can't open it. So if you can't open it, how do I get out? I need to have a safety margin for myself. So now no taxis are allowed to have a central locking system. So simple things like that. But I was going to talk about something else. Again, I got back to what the ministry was doing. I want to talk about Swachh Bharat before I finish. Now, Swachh Bharat, in my mind, is divided into two. One is the creation of toilets, which is a remarkable effort is going on across India for the first time, and it's long overdue, and it's one of the most important things in women's health, in women's self-confidence, in women's esteem, is the creation of just this toilet. And I'm really surprised that no government thought of it before. our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, thought about it. So it's an amazing thing that's happened, and I think we should all give a big clap to it. But the other half is the actual disposal or the dealing of waste, specifically plastic. Now, it's very easy to get an award for making dustbins, and I'm sure that's wonderful. But even that dustbin material goes into an area where it's not dealt with. If we could have more entrepreneurs putting R&D into how to turn this plastic back into oil, which is done by a company called Blessed in Japan, which exports these machines to Finland, to all those Nordic countries, so that they have no plastic and they get cheap oil. There's one company in Pune which is using this, but if somebody were to invent a machine to turn plastic back into oil, then the economics of it makes sense. I, for instance, as a member of parliament, could persuade my government that every member of parliament should buy one machine to begin with. And that machine, then, we could ask poor people, we pay them, say, 10 rupees to bring in a kilo of plastic, or 5 rupees, or whatever. All the unemployed, the beggars, etc., would then pitch in. Our rivers, our nalis, everything is full of plastic. Suppose we got this plastic in, and we paid people to bring it in. We then turned it into oil, and we sold it as a, because it's a low-grade oil, we sold it for generators. You could make enough money, and plus India would get clean overnight. And that is the second half of Swachh Bharat, because sometimes when we see the dirt lying around in the street, we say, "Acha, ye to Swachh Bharat nahi hai." Now, forgetting that Swachh Bharat now is a toilet-based enterprise, which is doing brilliantly. We need to look at the other part as well. So since this is a federation, I just thought I'd throw out this idea, since something will have to be done to make plastic economically viable to remove. That now, in my constituency, thank you, in my constituency, every talab in every village is covered with water hyacinth, jalkumbhi. And water hyacinth is brilliant if it is 1/10 of the water body, because it actually sucks up chemicals, it sucks up pollutants, and absorbs them. But it spreads so fast that at some point it drinks up the water. Now, the pradhan of the village is very happy if the jalkumbhi spreads, because then it turns the talab into land, and then he can sell the land. So then for the rest of its natural existence, the village has no water. So what we did was, I took 25 women to Assam, and I trained them on how to make chatais out of jalkumbhi. So when they came back, we offered anybody to sell us jalkumbhi, just cut it at 10 rupees. And people who had nothing better to do started cutting jalkumbhi and giving it to us, and we now turn it into chatais. But jalkumbhi is one of the best fertilizers for sugarcane in India. The point is, nobody has any incentive to get rid of jalkumbhi. I'm just giving you one example. And when we monetized and made the incentive, we got our water bodies back. So if we could think of ways to deal with plastic that did not mean you put it into something else. You know, a lot of people say, oh, we make plastic dolls and we make this. No, just put it back into oil. Anyway, you have been very kind in inviting me. I'd like to thank you for your generous donation towards People for Animals. People for Animals runs 36 hospitals, and now we're building a 37th in Chhattisgarh. And we don't get 1 rupee from the government. And I'm sorry to say that we don't get any 1 rupee from CSRs, except for Sun Pharma. Where are you? Please stand up so that I can thank you. Which was the first company to give us a CSR, which went quite far last year. But if you don't work with animals, you will not have any earth left. It's as simple as that. It's a scientific thing. It's not about love and tenderness. It's really about survival. So we depend totally on donations. And I'm happy that you have come forward with this donation. Thank you again very much.